So, Invincible Season 3 is deep into its run, and Episode 7 just dropped at the time of writing this, and by now it should be painfully obvious that Viltrumites, they're pretty overpowered. I mean, for God's sake, they send one mustache man to conquer an entire planet. On paper, these guys are walking gods. I remember watching this show and thinking, how the hell do you actually hurt one of these guys? And I'm pretty sure I'm not alone in thinking that, but is there even a way to bring them down? Does Mark even stand a chance against these mustache murder machines? Well, as someone who's read a fair chunk of the comics and who's paid attention to the show so far, I can tell you right now, Viltrumites are not in. They just had really good PR. In reality, they've got some glaring weaknesses, and today I'm breaking them all down. Now, before we get into it, I know a lot of people watching haven't read the comics, and don't worry, I'm not here to spoil too many major plot points. That said, it's practically impossible to talk about their weaknesses without some minor spoilers, because, well, that's where we actually see them get hurt. So, if you're the type who wants to go into the rest of the series completely blind, consider this your warning. Alright, so let's get into the video and the Viltrumites' first weakness. Now, you'd probably expect a race of unstoppable flying warlords to have a weakness like cosmic energy or some kind of mystical bullshit, right? You know how Superman had a kryptonite. But no, turns out the one thing that absolutely wrecked the Viltrumites was a virus. Not just any virus though, the Scourge Virus was specifically engineered to annihilate Viltrumites by attacking their genetic makeup and basically turning their own biology against them. And it worked so well that it wiped out 99.9% of their fucking species. This virus isn't just some ancient history footnote, it actually becomes a major threat later on, especially for Mark. And you guys know Alan, right? The fan-favorite alien. Yeah, he straight up wants to unleash this virus on Earth, because in his eyes, that's the only way to fight back against the Viltrumites, which, to be fair, kind of makes sense. But it's also not great for humanity. And for some, this virus thing, especially for me, this comes as a shock. Just the fact that a virus of all things would hurt the Viltrumites. And this bad, and most of all this effectively, is kind of crazy. Up to this point, the absolute majority of things have been completely ineffective towards even the weakest Viltrumite. They can tank nukes, gunshots, breathe in space and underwater. Seeing them die to something like bacteria or a virus is not exactly the mark of an unstoppable species, if you ask me. Well, I mean, to be fair, it was, genetically engineered to kill them. Perhaps I'm overreacting about the virus being able to stop Viltrumites being ridiculous, because the next thing is kind of even worse. It's highly unlikely the average bloke can get his hands on a virus like that, so what else? Well, turns out you can mess up a Viltrumite pretty bad without nothing but sound. Now, don't misinterpret this now, I don't mean any loud noise fucks them up, I mean specifically high-frequency sound waves that completely scramble their senses and wreck their balance and makes them pretty much useless. If you paid any attention in the show so far, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about because, matter of fact, we've already seen it twice. So the first time we see this in action is already as early as Invincible Season 2 Episode 2, when Marx gets dragged into this political mess with the Atlanteans, and he ends up fighting a huge sea monster called the Death Dweller. At first, we assume that it's an easy battle for Mark, but the monster lets out this insane high-frequency sound wave and Mark immediately crumbles. He basically becomes completely disoriented, struggling to keep himself together, and for the first time, we see a real exploitable flaw in Viltrumite biology. His ears are way too sensitive to certain frequencies, and when they get hit with the right sound, it completely shuts him down. Which I, by the way, think makes pretty much zero sense, since these guys evolved to survive in space, where there is no sound. Like, Viltrumite's ears can survive the pressure from the vacuum of space, but it can't take on certain frequencies. Later on in Season 3, someone figures this out and decides to take full advantage of it. You want to take a guess who it is? Yeah, it's Cecil. So, in Season 3 Episode 2, when Mark starts questioning Cecil's methods, like working with Sinclair and Darkwing, or I guess the wiki wants me to call him Darkwing too, but you guys know what I mean. Anyway, Mark starts threatening Cecil and I guess becomes a little too much of a Viltrumite for comfort. So Cecil pulls some next level shady shit. Well, I'd probably do the same to be fair. It's revealed that Cecil a while back had secretly implanted an earpiece in Mark's ear that, when triggered, released the same frequency of sound as the Death Dweller. So, when Cecil flips the switch, Mark collapses instantly. He can barely think, let alone fight. So yeah, if you ever need to take down a Viltrumite, just blast the right frequency and watch them hit the floor. But let's say you don't have access to high-tech sonic weapons, there's still another way to mess them up, because while their bodies are damn near indestructible, their insides, not so much. Now, this probably sounds like easier said than done, but with different wording, right? These guys are built like tanks, and actually getting to the vital organs is damn near impossible. But if you somehow manage to pull it off, which, let's be real, good luck with that, it would easily be one of the most effective ways to take them down for good. Severe damage to a Viltrumite's brain or heart is a death sentence, no matter how tough they are. Their regeneration is insane, but even that has its limits. It won't save them if you hit the right spot. Now, there's a couple examples of this. For example, in Invincible Season 2 Episode 4, where we witness a brutal showdown between Nolan and Lucan, a fellow Viltrumite on Fraxa. And during this fight, Nolan disembowels Lucan by slicing open his stomach and impaling him with a stalagmite, or a stalagamite, I don't know, one of those cave things. Despite this severe injury, Lucan isn't out on the count. Later, he returns, delivering a devastating blow to Nolan, breaking its back, and leading to Nolan's capture by the Viltrum Empire. This encounter, of course, shows us that grievous injuries won't stop a Viltrumite unless their brain or heart is destroyed. Lucan's ability to continue fighting after such a wound underscores the necessity of targeting these critical areas to ensure they're down for good. Now, let's compare that to Season 3 Episode 4, where the Viltrumites sent to execute Nolan ended up dead instead. While Nolan and Alan was held captive in prison, two Viltrumite enforcers are sent to execute him. At first, he doesn't resist, fully accepting his fate, until Alan and Battlebeast decide to crash the party. Battlebeast immediately takes on one of the executioners, their fight spilling into space. Meanwhile, Alan and Nolan struggle against the other Viltrumite, but manage to kill him by smashing his head in between their fists, which turns his brain into nothing but mush, taking him out for good. This, of course, proves that even elite Viltrumites aren't... I'm sorry, the joke is just so... It's just so easy, you know. Anyways, if you hit their brain or heart, they will die. The problem, actually landing that kind of attack is nearly impossible, even for someone as strong as Nolan and Alan. Alright, quick break before we get into the next weakness. If you're enjoying this video so far, consider subscribing. Videos like this take a ton of time to make, and your support really helps. Plus, at 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to eat a Carolina Reaper or the One Ship Challenge on camera. I might even do both if you guys really want to see me suffer. So if that sounds entertaining, you know what to do. Anyway, back to Viltrumite weaknesses, because this next one is actually really interesting. Most weapons in the Invincible universe are completely useless against Viltrumites. Bullets, you might as well be throwing Tic Tacs at them. Missiles, they're annoying at best. Even Cecil's huge fucking satellite cannon from Season 1 only gave Omniman quote-unquote the world's most expensive nosebleed. But Space Racer's gun, that thing is different. Now, Space Racer is one of those characters that's technically in the show but hasn't done much yet. You might have noticed him briefly in Season 2 when Mark is going through his dad's old books. Anyways, back to the gun itself. This thing pierces infinitely. During the few seconds we see it in the show, it straight up annihilates an entire star. This thing can, without a problem, pierce straight through a Viltrumite's body, which, if you've been paying attention, is insanely rare. Speaking of rare weapons, quick honorable mention here, remember War Woman from Episode 1? Her mace actually managed to slightly injure Omniman. Not a ton, but it still made him bleed. Unfortunately, there's almost no information on it though, but considering War Woman is pretty clearly a parody of Wonder Woman, it's safe to assume that Mace was probably made of some godly or otherworldly material. But it's definitely not enough to be its own category on this video, but worth a quick mention since weapons effective against Viltrumites are so rare. Anyway, we haven't really seen Space Racer's gun fully in action yet in the series, besides that short moment just mentioned in Season 2. But if they follow the comics, it's only a matter of time before this gun makes a huge impact. When it does, a lot of Viltrumites are gonna have a bad day. Alright, so on to the next weakness. If you've been wondering, is there anything in nature that can actually kill a Viltrumite? The answer is yes. They're called Ragnars, and they're absolute monsters. The reason they're so insanely strong is because they evolved on a planet with extremely high gravity, which I guess could technically count as a Viltrumite weakness too, but that's kind of a stretch. Viltrumites are quite used to being the strongest things in the galaxy, so the fact that an actual species evolved to be a legitimate threat to them is kind of insane. These things are so strong that a Viltrumite has to be careful fighting them, because if they're not, they will get killed. Now, unfortunately, once again, we haven't really seen a Ragnar in action yet, besides Nolan's books, which I guess at least confirms that they are part of the series, but we haven't really seen them at their full potential yet. But to be honest, don't expect too much. They aren't really sentient, so don't really expect them to show up as an ally to the coalition of planets. The next weakness, the Klaxus plant. No, you guys must be thinking I'm pulling your leg here. I mean, seriously, a flower? Yeah, I know how it sounds, but hear me out. The Klaxus plant produces a toxin that's specifically poisonous to Viltrumites. Now, it won't outright kill them instantly or anything dramatic like that, but will weaken them pretty significantly. Basically, it makes these unusually unstoppable threats much easier to handle in a fight. In the comics, the Viltrumites were so freaked out by these stupid plants that they unleashed literal armies of beetles to eat them all. Yeah, beetles, the Sinlac beetle. The coalition of planets even weaponized this toxin to use against them, proving that if you want to bring down a Viltrumite, sometimes all you need is a goddamn gardening degree. Alright, we've covered viruses, sounds, and space monsters, so what's the next weakness, you might ask? Well, the answer is heat. Not just any heat though, I'm talking sun-level heat. Yeah, turns out Viltrumites can withstand damn near anything but throw one into the sun and they start falling apart. Now, without doing a lot of research here, this is all just theoretical. The sun's surface is, what, like 6,000 degrees Celsius? Might sound like a lot, and it sure is, but what if I told you yes we, like real life, not Invincible, have reached an even higher degree Celsius? In fact, it's in the trillions. From the help of a relativistic heavy ion collider. Yeah, you can search it up if you don't believe me. Now, I assume we're not quite able to use this thing as a weapon, but again, this is like our world I'm talking about. Cecil and his scientists and all the alien scientists out there can surely use this weakness to heat in order to create a weapon if even we can do it. Okay, heads up, here's some spoilers. In the comics, there's this absolutely brutal final battle between Mark and Frag, and these two go at it so hard that they literally end up brawling on the surface of the sun. And guess what happens? Even their god-tier healing powers start failing, their bodies start breaking down, and the fight suddenly becomes less one-sided. And you know, that's the point. Viltrumites are built to handle a lot of shit, but sustain intense heat messes up their regenerative abilities badly enough to make a difference. Sure, throwing omniman into a bonfire isn't gonna do anything, but toss his ass into the sun? Suddenly you've got a fair fight. Well, I mean, not really, to be fair. You'll probably melt. Or yeah, no, you'd probably even evaporate. Yeah, it's extreme, but hey, at least we know they've got limits. And speaking of limits, let's get to the next weakness. Although it's a bit more boring. Okay, let's be honest, aging as a weakness is kind of lame compared to brain damage, a deadly virus, and space laser guns, but still it's worth mentioning. Yes, Viltrumites live for thousands of years, and yeah, they stay in their physical prime for most of that time, just look at Conquest. But eventually they do start to slow down, weaken, and get old, it just takes forever. Now, is this something you can actually use against a Viltrumite in a fight? No, but it does mean that in the long run, they are not immortal. So technically, if you had infinite patience and just waited a few thousand years, they'd eventually become beatable, I guess. Not exactly practical, but hey, it's a weakness. And with that anticlimactic ending, that's every major Viltrumite weakness explained for you. At least the ones we know about so far, because who knows, they might change these weaknesses whenever, so we'll just wait and see. But let's be real, I probably missed something. Because, hey, I fuck up too. In fact, everybody fucks up. To fuck up is human. Shakespeare said that, or at least according to Rexplode, he did. If you think I left anything out or got something wrong, let me know in the comments, and while you're at it, please consider subscribing. These videos take a crazy amount of time and effort, and I don't even get paid, so yeah. But every bit of support makes it feel worth it. Now, this is gonna sound really desperate, and that's not to say it isn't. I know a lot of people on this platform say they'll do something and never really follow through, but I genuinely promise when we hit 1,000 subscribers, I will be eating either a Carolina Reaper or the One Chip Challenge. Hell, maybe even both, fuck it, you guys decide. Comment what you think I should do. On a real note, 1,000 subscribers has been a lifelong dream of mine, and if I ever hit it, it would mean the absolute world to me. And I guess eating that spicy stuff on camera would mean that I'd be doing a face reveal too, so if you guys want to witness my suffering and finally see what I look like, you know what to do.